I want to start today with a bit of a riddle.
Okay.
Actually, it's more of a personality quiz for an entire nation. I want you to picture a dinner party. A very high stakes and honestly very confusing dinner party.
I'm already intrigued. Who exactly is on this guest list?
Okay, so at this table you have seated the following people. First, you have a former United States Secretary of State, a four-star general.
Right.
Next to him, you have the Emir of Kuwait.
Okay, a bit of a pivot.
Across the table sits a retired British appellate judge. Next to him is an Italian TV broadcaster.
A TV broadcaster.
Yeah. And finally, in the empty chair at the head of the table.
Yeah, the entity chair.
An empty chair. Because seated there is an assassinated politician.
That honestly sounds like the setup to a very complicated, maybe niche geopolitical joke. Or maybe a meeting of the UN that went completely off the rails.
It does, doesn't it? It sounds like a random number generator just picked the guests out of a hat. But it's not a joke, and it's not random at all. This is an actual list. So the question for you listening is, what on earth do all of these entities, because obviously one of them isn't even a single person, what do they all have in common?
And just to ground this for everyone listening, we aren't talking about a conspiracy theory here. These aren't members of some secret society meeting in a basement somewhere.
No, not at all.
These people are linked by a very specific, very official thread that's found right there in public government records.
Exactly. They're all recipients of the Gjergj Kastrioti Skënderbeu decoration. It is one of the highest honorary state decorations given by the Republic of Albania.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive today. Because on the surface, if you just glance at the source material, it's really just a list of names. It looks administrative.
Boring, even.
Yeah, boring. But if you actually stop and look at who is on this list, and crucially why they're there, it stops being a simple list of names and it starts becoming a map.
A map of what exactly?
A map of survival. I mean, a map of high-stakes strategy. This single medal gives us a forensic look at how a small nation like Albania navigates the modern world.
Which is fascinating.
We're going to see how they balance superpowers, how they attract foreign wealth, how they honor their own scars, and perhaps most surprisingly, how they fight to keep their culture alive in a completely globalized world.
So we're treating this medal as a lens to understand a country's entire worldview. I love that. But before we get to the celebrities and the emirs, we really have to establish the ground rules. What exactly is this object we're talking about?
Right, the Gjergj Kastrioti Skënderbeu decoration. It is a state decoration awarded by the President of Albania. Now, the name itself is the very first clue to his weight.
Skënderbeu, or Skanderbeg in English.
Right. Gjergj Kastrioti Skënderbeg. If you aren't familiar with Balkan history, or if you've never visited Tirana, you really cannot overstate this man's importance.
No, you can't.
The source material describes him simply as the national hero of the Albanian people.
Which feels like a bit of an understatement given his actual legacy, right?
It is a massive understatement. He was a 15th century military commander who led a decades-long rebellion against the Ottoman Empire.
Wow.
He held off a superpower for 25 years. In the Albanian consciousness, he isn't just a historical figure. He is the ultimate symbol of resistance, identity, and survival. He is the founding myth. His helmet is literally on the flag.
So naming the medal after him is essentially the highest compliment the state can pay. It's their version of the Legion of Honor or the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Precisely. It invokes the spirit of the nation's greatest defender. And because the name carries that incredible weight, the criteria for getting it are very, very specific.
What are they?
Well, the source says it is awarded for important contributions or specific heroic acts for three things: the defense, the strengthening, and the advancement of the Republic of Albania.
Defense, strengthening, and advancement. I want to keep those three pillars in mind, because as we go through this list, I think we're going to see that the definition of defense is much broader than just guns and ammo.
It definitely is. But before we move on to that, I need to make one technical clarification.
Oh, okay.
This is important because the terminology can get quite confusing. And if you're ever at a diplomatic reception in Tirana, you do not want to mix this up. You have to distinguish this decoration from the Order of Skanderbeg.
Oh, I noticed that in the notes. There's a big distinction there.
A massive one. The order is a dynastic award. That is given by the Albanian royal family, the descendants of the monarchy King Zog's line.
Right.
The decoration we are analyzing today is a state award from the Republic.
So one is from a would-be king and the other is from the elected president.
Correct. We are looking at the government's choices here, not the monarchies. This is the state speaking about who matters to the state.
Got it. Republic, not royals. And looking at the eligibility for this, it seems pretty open.
Yes, and that is key to our analysis. It is eligible to both Albanians and foreign nationals. And honestly, the foreign nationals are where the geopolitical story really gets interesting.
Why is that?
Because when a country gives a medal to a foreigner, they're sending a message to the rest of the world.
Let's get into that list then, because when I was scrubbing through the recipients, the first group that jumped out at me were the heavy hitters. We are talking about legitimate global power players.
You are seeing the defense aspect of the criteria in action right there. This is Albania shoring up its security through alliances.
I'm looking specifically at 2003. Who gets the medal? Colin Powell. At the time, a retired U.S. general and the former Secretary of State.
Context is everything here. Look at the date, 2003.
Post 9/11.
Exactly. Post 9/11, the early stages of the Iraq War context. Albania, having emerged from decades of extreme isolation under communism, was very keen to demonstrate its loyalty to the Atlantic Alliance. By honoring Colin Powell, the Albanian state is sending a massive signal.
It's a signal of alignment. It's basically saying, we pick this side.
Exactly. It's a way of saying we are with you. And reciprocally, thank you for being with us. Remember, U.S. intervention in the Balkans in the 90s is a defining memory for the region.
Right.
Without U.S. involvement, the map of the Balkans might look very different today. Honoring Powell is cementing that specific bond.
And he's not the only American official on the list either. We see Rosemary DiCarlo, a career diplomat, and Jonathan M. Moore. It feels like a very deliberate strategy to keep Washington close.
Absolutely. For a small country in a volatile neighborhood, access to the U.S. State Department is a survival mechanism. These medals are diplomatic currency.
They build relations.
They build personal relationships. But notice it's not just the U.S. If you look at the European names, you see a similar pattern of cementing alliances, but with a slightly different flavor.
Right. I see Giorgio Napolitano, the president of Italy. That makes sense. Italy is right across the water. Then you have Michael Spindelegger, the foreign minister of Austria, and the Nars Tak, a German politician.
These are key European power centers: Italy, Austria, Germany. These are the countries that hold the keys to European integration. Albania wants to be part of the EU. Honoring these figures is a way of acknowledging their support in that long, difficult process.
It's almost like a who's who of people Albania needs on speed dial.
In a way, yes. But it's deeper than just shaking hands at a summit. I want to draw your attention to Henry Brooke.
The British judge, I saw that, Sir Henry Brooke.
Yes, a retired British Court of Appeal judge. Now pause for a second. Why does a British judge get a medal named after a 15th century warrior who fought the Ottomans with a sword?
I honestly assumed he did something heroic. Or maybe presided over a specific case that helped Albania internationally.
He did help them, but in a very specific context. The source notes he was honored specifically for services to justice reform.
Okay, so that connects back to the criteria, strengthening the republic.
Exactly. This is where the definition of defense expands. Strengthening the republic isn't just about tanks and NATO treaties. It's about the legal system itself.
That makes total sense.
For a post-communist country transitioning to democracy, judicial reform is arguably the hardest battle they face. Corruption can destroy a state just as effectively as an invading army can.
So honoring a British judge is a way of acknowledging that a functioning court system is just as vital to the nation's survival as a military alliance.
Correct. It acknowledges that the rule of law is a central pillar of the state. So you have the American military might, the European diplomatic corps, and British legal expertise, all covered by this one single medal.
It paints a picture of a country that is firmly looking west. It's integrating itself into the Euro-Atlantic framework. It's saying, we are part of this club.
That is the primary narrative, yes.
And here's where the plot kind of thickens. It's not just looking west, because if you scroll down that recipient list, you suddenly leave Europe entirely. You cross the Mediterranean and land squarely in the Middle East.
This is the development aspect of the award kicking in, and this is where Albania's strategy gets very pragmatic.
We're talking about royalty from the Gulf. We have Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar. We have Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the foreign minister of the UAE.
It creates a fascinating balance, doesn't it? You have the NATO commanders on one side and the Gulf leaders on the other. Albania is diversifying its portfolio of friends.
And there's one specific example that I think perfectly illustrates why they are getting this award. It's almost transactionally transparent. the Emir of Kuwait, Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah,
Yeah.
he got the medal in 2012.
Yes. The citation for that award is incredibly telling.
Yes.
It's very specific.
The source explicitly says he got it for his, quote, financial contribution to the reconstruction of the Skanderbeg Square, end quote.
Connect the dots there.
Yeah.
The medal is named Skanderbeg. The main square in the capital Tirana is Skanderbeg Square.
Right.
The Emir of Kuwait writes the check to fix up the square, and in return he receives the Skanderbeg decoration.
It's incredibly literal. You fix the namesake square here as the namesake's medal?
It is, but you shouldn't dismiss it as just a receipt. It's symbolic of modern statecraft. Development is one of the pillars of the award. In a modern context, securing funding for major infrastructure projects, making the capital city look like a modern European capital, that is a high service to the state.
It is interesting, though. Skanderbeg was famous for fighting the East, specifically the Ottomans, and now the medal named after him is being used to thank leaders from the East for rebuilding his square.
That is the irony of history, isn't it? But it's also the flexibility of modern diplomacy.
Yeah.
Albania is recognizing that to strengthen the republic, you need diverse resources.
You can't just rely on one group.
Right. You need security guarantees from the West, but you also need development capital, and often that capital comes from the Gulf.
So the medal essentially bridges those two worlds. It says we value your money just as much as we value their protection.
Precisely. It's a survival strategy. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, so we've covered the global stage. We've been to Washington, Brussels, and Kuwait City. But we have to talk about the neighborhood, because a significant number of these recipients are from the Balkans.
Naturally. You cannot separate Albania from the broader Albanian ethnic region, specifically Kosovo.
We see Fatmir Sejdiu, the president of Kosovo. We see Ramush Haradinaj, the former prime minister of Kosovo.
This signals regional solidarity. By awarding the leaders of Kosovo the highest state decoration, Albania is reinforcing the bond between the two populations.
Right.
It's an acknowledgement of their shared struggle and shared political destiny. It's stating, your leaders are our heroes too.
And it's not just the external leaders either. There's mention of internal politics too, like Fados Nano, the former prime minister of Albania. But what really struck me most about the domestic list is the tragic element. There are several posthumous awards.
Yes. This is where the medal serves a completely different function. It stops being a tool of diplomacy and becomes a tool of memory.
The name Azem Hajdari stands out. The source describes him as an assassinated Albanian politician.
Hajdari was a key figure in the student movement that helped bring down communism in the early 90s. He was a turbulent, charismatic figure in the democratization process. He was decorated posthumously in 2008.
And Sabri Godo,
a writer, screenwriter, and politician, also decorated posthumously. When the state does this, awarding the dead, it's doing something very different than when it awards a foreign diplomat.
How do you mean?
It's canonizing them. It's saying this person's life and their death was for the strengthening of the republic.
Yeah.
It weaves their personal story into the official national history.
It makes them permanent.
Exactly. It elevates them to the level of Skanderbeg himself, a defender of the nation.
It creates a pantheon, basically. It's telling the citizens, these are your saints.
Exactly. It tells the next generation who to look up to. It says that political sacrifice is recognized and honored. It binds the trauma of the past, like the assassination of Hajdari, into the strength of the modern state.
It's fascinating how one physical object, this piece of metal and ribbon, can mean thank you for the money, thank you for the protection, and we will never forget your sacrifice, all at the exact same time.
It is a multi-purpose tool of state identity. But there's one more category that I think is the most surprising, and in my opinion, the most profound.
I think I know exactly where you're going. We've done defense, we've done development, we've done politics, now we have to talk about culture.
We have to. Because if you look closely, the list includes poets, it includes historians, it moves away from the hard power of generals and politicians and right into the soft power of ideas.
I saw Sabri Hamiti. The source says he was awarded for irreplaceable contribution to modern Albanian thought.
Modern Albanian thought. Just pause on that for a second. That is a magnificent phrase for a government citation.
It really is.
Usually governments reward action. You built a bridge, you won a battle, you signed a treaty. This is rewarding thinking. It acknowledges that philosophy, literature, and ideas are a genuine form of national service.
And Nekshevahir Spahiu, decorated for contribution to national culture. And Alexander Stipchevich, the historian and archaeologist, these aren't people leading armies or signing treaties, they are writing books.
But in the Balkans, writing history is a form of defense. Establishing your narrative, Your origin, your culture. That is how you maintain your identity against larger powers who might want to erase it or claim it as their own.
That makes a lot of sense.
The historian is a soldier in the battle for memory.
Wow. But the one that really stopped me in my tracks, the one that made me go, wait, is this a typo? Was the award given recently in October 2023.
You're talking about RAI Calabria.
Yes. It's a TV station.
Right.
Well, a branch of the Italian broadcaster by RAI.
It seems odd at first glance, doesn't it? Putting a regional TV branch on the exact same shelf as Colin Powell or an assassinated martyr. It feels like a category error.
It seems very odd. I mean, why did a TV station get the highest state honor? Did they produce a really good documentary or something?
The source explains it clearly. They were awarded for their significant contribution to preserving the Arbëreshi culture and language.
Can you unpack that for us? Because I think a lot of you listening might not know who the Arbëreshi are or why they matter so much to Albania.
The Arbëreshi are an Albanian community living in southern Italy. But they aren't recent immigrants. They didn't arrive on boats in the 1990s.
Okay.
They fled Albania centuries ago, actually right after the death of Skanderbeg himself in the 15th century, to escape the Ottoman conquest.
So they have been in Italy for 500 years.
Over 500 years. And miraculously, they have kept their distinct language, their customs, and their identity alive in Italy all that time. They're essentially a living time capsule of medieval Albania.
That is incredible resilience. 5 centuries.
It is. And RAI Calabria, the regional branch of the Italian state broadcaster, produces regular programming specifically for this community.
So they broadcast in the language itself.
Exactly. They broadcast in the Arbëreshi dialect. They tell the local stories. They keep the dialect breathing in a digital age. And the President of Albania decided that this act, keeping the language alive across the Adriatic Sea, was worthy of the Skanderbeg decoration.
That is a profound statement on what actually constitutes defense.
It is the ultimate statement. It says that the nation isn't just borders and armies. The nation is the language. The nation is the culture. If the language dies, the nation disappears, no matter how many tanks you have or how many treaties you sign.
So by broadcasting a TV show in an old dialect, this Italian media outlet is in the eyes of the state defending the republic.
They are defending the very soul of the republic, and that's why they get the medal. It puts the preservation of identity on the exact same pedestal as geopolitical security. It elevates the cultural worker to the rank of the general.
It's a really incredible spectrum. When you look at it all together, you realize that a state has to operate on so many different levels simultaneously just to exist.
It really strips away the simplicity of foreign policy. It shows that survival is a complex ecosystem.
So let's try to pull this all together. We started with a riddle. What connects a U.S. general, a Kuwaiti emir, and an Italian TV station?
And the answer is, they are all pillars that hold up the house.
That's a great way to put it.
If you are a small nation like Albania, you cannot survive on your own. You don't have the luxury of isolation. You absolutely need the hard power. That's Colin Powell and the NATO alliance. You need that shield.
Right.
But you also need the soft power and infrastructure. That's the Emir of Kuwait and the Skanderbeg Square. You need investment to make life livable and modern.
And you need the political will. That's the regional leaders and the domestic politicians who sacrificed for the system.
And finally, you need the soul.
You need the soul. That's the writers, the thinkers, and yes, the broadcasters who ensure that 500 years from now, someone is still speaking the language.
It's amazing how a single Wikipedia list, if you actually take the time to read it, can reveal the entire survival strategy of a country. It's not just a list of awards. It's a list of values.
And it shows that national defense is a much wider concept than we usually think. It's not just about stopping an invasion. It's about building a square where people can gather. It's about writing a book that challenges how people think. It's about broadcasting a song in your grandmother's language.
All of that is Skanderbeg.
All of that is Skanderbeg.
It really makes you think about how we define contribution in our own societies.
That is a powerful place to leave it. But before we go, I want to leave you listening with one final thought to chew on.
What's that?
We live in a world where we constantly obsess over military budgets and trade deals. We track where the aircraft carriers are going. We look at GDP growth quarter by quarter. But here is a nation that officially equates modern thought and cultural preservation with national defense. They give them the exact same medal.
It really makes you wonder about our own priorities.
Exactly. If we started viewing our artists and our teachers as being just as critical to our national survival as our generals, how different would our own societies look?
That is a question definitely worth exploring.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
A pleasure as always.